Hello, everybody. Welcome to the next module, Software Asset Management in Unit 3. So the learning objectives of this module is to understand the concept and purpose of software asset management and the placement of SAM in ITAM ecosystem, the value of SAM, and then the concept of compliance and the risks, costs associated or related to software audits, and then the best practice of software asset management. And lastly, the approach to achieve good software asset management. So these are all the objectives of this module. So firstly, the concept of software asset management. In IT asset management, there are four different topics, right? Software asset management, hardware asset management, and then SCAM, that is services and cloud asset management, and then people and information asset management. So now we are going to talk about SAM, that is software asset management. Okay, so this is the second topic in ITAM 4 layers or 4 topics. What is a software? So think about it for a minute. Okay, in spite of just reading this text, I want you to think about it. What is a software? So we all know, when it comes to IT components, there is hardware, software. So software is something that you don't see, right? It's not something where you can touch and feel it, right? But rather, without software, you will not be able to work with the computers, right? Let's say a desktop or a laptop computer, right? You can see the hardware, you can see the BIOS, right? You can sense it. It is very much, you can perceive it, right? Say your CPU, your RAM, your storage space, your hard disk, all this is something that you can touch and see. But software, you cannot touch it, right? It is something that sits in the CD, or right, it sits in the CD and then it gets deployed on your computer and it enables your computers to work. So software is something that you don't see. Okay, and software is very much, it's an integral part in your IT assets. So software may be purchased, licensed, or developed. So when you say I am purchasing a software license, okay, so it's you generally don't purchase software. Okay, it is actually, you are getting the licensed version. It is, you pay some amount of money so that you can use that software as per the terms and conditions. Okay, software is characterized by a licensed position, typically viewed as a capex expenditure. So capex is capital expenditure. Although new models of deployment could see this revised as an OPEX, that is operational expenditure. Okay, so new models, it's talking about the cloud models where you don't have to invest a big amount at one time. Rather, you would be paying the money, operationally, right? So that is about the software. Okay, so if you look at this image, you see people are using information, and information is using software, and software, is using hardware. Or you can also say like this: people sits on, people, it's first is hardware. Okay, and hardware, on top of hardware you have software, and on top of software, or in software, you have information, and this information is used by people. You can also look at it in this way. Okay, so the next is concept of software asset management. It has the objective of optimizing the complete life cycle of every software component, involving risk reduction and cost control. It is regarded as the most crucial ITAM area, representing the greatest financial and legal risk in relation to vendor license conditions and complex compliance regulations, such as license compliance, entitlement compliance, and country-specific compliance regulations. So this SAM, as we discussed before, the SAM is software asset management, involves a lot of financial risks, right? And there is also legal risks that it involves financial and legal risks, because this licensing is not an easy thing that will be able to understand it. But of course, yes, there are software asset management experts who do that. They understand the interdependencies, the intricacies of all the licenses, and they will be able to help the organizations to prevent the software penalizations and ensure that the organization is adhering to the terms and conditions that is defined in software licenses. Okay, so if we this is the software license is very complex, right? It has got license compliance, and it has got entitlement compliance, and there is also something called country specific compliance regulations. So software asset management looks into all these aspects and ensures that we are managing our software assets without you know without breaking the rules of the software licenses. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so as we discussed before, if you have any queries, please email to info@oneworldtraining.com. Okay, software asset lifecycle. So if you look at this image, okay, you will find a small difference. In hardware asset management lifecycle, we've seen something called plan, right? First was planning, and then acquire, and then manage, and then control and retire. So here, this 5 steps has become uh, 6 steps. Okay, so first it starts with requirement, and then design, build, and procure, and then deployment, and then operation, and then control and optimize, and the last one is retirement. Okay, so there's a typo here. Sorry for that. This is retirement. So it has got 6 steps. But if you ask me, is it you know it's almost the same like hardware asset lifecycle itself, because requirement is nothing but the planning. In hardware asset management, we call it as planning, but then here we are saying requirement to understand the requirements of the customer, or the stakeholders. And then we are in hardware asset management cycle, we are calling it as acquisition. And here we are either designing it or building or procuring it, which means you design on your own. Okay, design build on your own. And then if design build is not happening internally, then you procure. You will have to procure it from some other company, right? So that is design build and procure, which is nothing the same, it's the same like acquisition in ham cycle. And then in ham we had what? Manage. But here, once the software is designed or procured, then what do? You will have to deploy it onto your machines, right? Onto your end user machines or to your stakeholders machines. And then after deployment, then comes operation. Okay. And in hardware asset management lifecycle, we had something called management, but here we have deployment and operation. And then in ham cycle, we had something called control. And here we do have control and optimize, because we'll have to control the software licenses. We need to ensure that the licenses are being used as per the defined terms and conditions. And then optimize. We need to ensure that the software licenses are harvested. If a person is not using that software, then we'll have to uninstall that software and reuse it onto another machine, something like that, which is called as harvesting or optimization. And then the last one is retirement. So let's say the software has, is no longer used by the end users. So then what do we do with that software? Simple, we'll have to retire it, right? So this is the software asset lifecycle. The benefits. So benefits of software asset management is, as you know, it's pretty much self-explanatory in my opinion. And the reason is, it's going to, when we say software asset management is needed, we are saying that it's going to prevent the risks with respect to finance, right? So the most important thing is uh, managing the risks. It controls the costs. Imagine we are optimally utilizing the licenses, then we'll be able to reduce the costs. And then next is obtain competitive advantage. And that, which means that we'll be having a competitive advantage will be in comparison with other, our vendors or our competitors, we'll be having better, reputation that we are in adherence with software license audits. Enhancing employee motivation in the workplace environment. So when we have software asset management, we'll be able to install the necessary software to all the required people. Okay, I remember, in my days when I used to work, I remember that I requested for a software. Okay, I requested for a software, and then the management said it's very, expensive, so we will not be able to do it. But imagine if that software was installed on some other's machine and that person is not actually using it, right? It's just they are wasting the money. And the person, that is me, who wants the software is not able to use the software. So it enhances employee motivation and workplace environment. An improved software portfolio supporting the overall business drivers. So if you have the uh, software licenses, which is not pirated versions, okay, so it definitely improves the software portfolio, supporting the overall business. Okay, and the last thing is proactive planning and quality decision making. So when you have software asset management, you will be able to know what all software is there in your organization, how many licensed versions we have, how many entitlements we have. And then with this information, we'll be able to make quality decision making with respect to procuring or, or acquiring the software licenses. Okay, so the potential benefits of well-implemented SAM are significant and have the potential to exceed the implementation and operating costs.